Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to this critical session on a critical exam, that is critical reasoning section of XAT. Now all of you have taken CAT, CAT is done and dusted. We now have to look forward. It was a tough exam, it was tough for everybody. Therefore, you should not worry too much about it. If you think you haven't done well, it's all relative. Let's wait for the answer sheets and now move on to the next big exam, that is XAT, right? And as you know, critical reasoning is an important part of XAT. We've done critical reasoning in CAT as part of our RC, but we haven't done standalone critical reasoning questions. So that is what we'll be looking at, an understanding of the basics of critical reasoning that will help you do very well in the VALR section. You have to answer it quickly, you have to answer it accurately and get the required marks, right? So first let's look at what is critical reasoning. Well, a short passage will be given to you which will have an argument in it and there will be a question based on the passage. What are the general questions asked? What is the assumption made by the author? What would strengthen the author's argument? That means what would make his conclusion stronger? What would weaken the author's argument? Pushkar, of course, if you are interested in the Xavier's institutes, they are very good, but the last date and all are there, no? I don't know when it is. I have filled my XAT form. So, assumption, strengthen, weaken, complete the argument, parallel reasoning. These are also questions that are asked in other exams like NMAT. NMAT also has a critical reasoning section. So, if you taking either of the exams, but today it's specifically XAT and its critical reasoning. All right. Now, first question is inference and conclusion. What is the rule for answering an inference or these are the most common type of questions that are asked. So what is an inference? An inference is a deduction that you make from given facts given in the passage, right? When the author says it, that's a conclusion. If you are asked what can you conclude from the passage, basically you are restating the main point of the author. All right. So generally they say what can you infer? You're going one step away from what has been stated, but something that is definitely true when based on what has been given in the passage. All right. I don't know. It's not CR decoded. It's CR easy. Not part 2. This is the only CR I have done for that. Maybe I had taken a session earlier. The video description, I do not know. This is the first session I'm taking for this year. All right, Naman. So sit back, relax. Let's do the basics. So for this, what do? Read the passage. Read it thoroughly. Do not skip read. That is the key to your success in any reading comprehension and critical reasoning question, and especially for that. Make sure you know what are the facts given to you. All right. So let's first read this passage. Try to understand the main points without worrying about the time. We'll start worrying about the time from the next question or once we have our basics right. All right. So read the following passage or paragraph and answer the questions that follow. As a generation, we are rethinking what we are to others. Our technological prowess has become a wireless lifeline for others. Some of us apply ourselves to innovation, hackathons and other forms of technological creativity. Our families look to us to know how to use technology, both to waste time and to make meaning. Some of us set up FaceTime for those denied face-to-face time. Okay, so different ways in which we are using technology and technology is affecting us. Right? We show people with whom we don't have face-to-face time that it's okay. Digital relationships are like real relationships, though, in fact, we're not always sure. Okay? So, one, we are rethinking our relationship with others. Second, we have technological prowess, that means proficiency. the knack to use it. I will talk about it. Praveen, let's finish this question first. All right. So there are different ways in which we use innovation in our relationship with others. One, to use your time, those who are better use hackathons and other things. With others, you connect using FaceTime and you tell others it's okay. So what if I'm not physically present? I'm digitally present, though you yourselves are not sure. Which of the following is the most meaningful conclusion of the passage? What is the main thing the author is trying to put across? We have a lot of sessions for DM, Praveen. Our OMET course has a DM section specially. All right, so we will tell you how to go about it. It's a practical, problem-oriented, solution-oriented critical reasoning. That's what decision making is. Okay. For now, please concentrate on this question. What is the meaningful conclusion? Change is the only constant in life, so people must embrace technology. Is he saying we have to embrace technology because of change? Right? Is he saying that? Somebody says E, somebody says B. Technological advancement helps society derive meaning from work. Is that the only thing it says? Pranav, those of you who's given B, Ishika. Yes, meaning from work, those who bring meaning, some others waste time. But if you're saying this is the conclusion, what about the other things that he has said in the passage? Right? Parveen thinks it's A. If change is the only constant, what about how technology, is technology only about change? Technology is changing the way we think about relationships is not the same as saying change is the only constant. So it has used the word change with a different interpretation. So not A, not B. Pandemic का तो mention ही नहीं हुआ है. It's destroying families. What about the face-to-face time, FaceTime connections? It has changed. Changed the way we are looking at social relationships. So the answer is E, not B. B is too narrow. It is too narrow. Help society derive meaning. It is only a few people who get some meaning from life through technology, but not for everyone. And the author has not said that that is the only thing, right? He has said, what is the very first line of the passage? This is the important part. We are rethinking what we are to others. Wireless lifeline, our technological ability has become a lifeline, has become a support for others. All right? Our families look to us. How to use technology to bring meaning in life is how you are helping your family use technology to bring meaning to life, which is not the same as technology helps us derive meaning from work. Got it? So the correct answer is E. All right, next one. So generally I give the question also here for any CR, you should first read the question. It's a conclusion question. If it's a conclusion question, you have to get the facts right because you put all the facts together to derive a conclusion. Basically, it's the main point the author is trying to indicate or might have mentioned it. It can be a summing up of the main point of the passage if it's a conclusion question, right? So let's read the next question. Geologists have been investigating a potential cycle for geological events for a long time. So, is there a potential cycle for geological events? Do geological events follow a cycle or a pattern? Geologists have been trying to find an answer to this question. Number one. Back in the 1920s and 30s, scientists of the era had suggested, so there are different theories about this cycle. Back in the 1920s and 30s, scientists of the era had suggested that the geological record had a 30 million year cycle, while in the 1980s and 90s, they used the best dated geological events at the time that gave them a range of pulses of 26.2 to 30.6 million years. Is there a cycle? Is there a pulse? So one particular era of scientists said it's 30 million year cycle. Another, the more recent 1980s and 90s, said the range is between pulses of 26.2 to 30.6 million years. Now everything seems to be in order. So what is the final verdict? 27.5 million years is right about where we would expect that geological events follow a cycle, and that cycle, that pulse range is likely to be 27.5 million years. A study last year suggested that this 27.5 million year mark is when mass extinctions happen too. All right. These are the facts. Make sure you get these facts in your head before we look at the options. Which of the following statements can be best concluded from the passage? Not all species go extinct once every 27.5 million years. Mass extinctions and geological pulse are correlated. Geological disasters happen sporadically. Pulse between geological events is constant. All species go extinct once every 27.5 million years. Which do you think is the correct answer? Remember, a conclusion is a statement that is 100% true based on what is given in the passage. The moment you look at an option and say, based on what is given in the passage, I can say this, but I'm not very sure if I can say that this is what the author says happens every time, then that's not the correct answer. All right, so what is the answer? Let me quickly look at your answers. Key in your answers as quickly as you can. Not all species go extinct every 27.5 million years. Mass extinctions and geological pulse are correlated. Geological disasters happen sporadically. Sporadically, okay, he mentions of a cycle, pulses, something that happens at, cycles means sporadic. What is the meaning of sporadic? Intermittent, with long or short gap. The gaps are not constant. Here there is an idea of an indication of uniformity, at least in terms of the periods. The pulse is this range. So sporadically means intermittently, as and when. Sporadically word makes it wrong. Geological events sporadically, then the whole investigating, is there a cycle, is there a pattern, cycle up and down, is that there? So it cannot be C. Shivam, whenever you get this right, make sure that has been mentioned. Did he say all species go extinct once every 27.5 million years? So every 27.5 million years ago, all species go extinct. Or is he saying that 27.5 million year mark or that cycle applies to extinctions too? Extinctions, if they happen, they also happen at this cycle of 27.5 million year. It follows the same cycle, does not mean all will go extinct at that particular period. Did you get the difference? Isme you are saying every species follows the same cycle and every species every 27.5 million years dies, goes extinct. He is saying extinctions are also following a pattern which follows a cycle of 27.5 million years. So this is also not correct. Which one can you say pakka? I don't have to really worry. Yes. We are not talking about a random time, that they can happen randomly. They follow a time pattern or cycle. That's what the main point is talking about. So sporadically makes it wrong. But what is the author talking about? Isn't it that mass extinctions also follow a pattern which is called a pulse here of 27.5 million years. So there is a relationship between mass extinction and this pulse or cycle when things happen more. Got it? All right. When you get a short passage, what's the question talking about? Cannot be concluded. All right? It is not narrow. It is not at all narrow, Pranav. It is the only one which is exactly what the author has said. That there is a connection between mass extinction. First main point is that is there a cycle in geological events? Okay, this is the question. Some people, they said yes, there is a cycle. Some people put this at 30 million. Recent ones put it at 26.2 to 30, finally came down to 27.2. Geological events follow a pattern of 27.2, a cycle of 27.2 million years. That is the period during which the cycle happens. And this is also the same time that mass extinction, this is the same cycle that mass extinctions follow. Got it? Sporadically, I explained just now, Ankit. Sporadically means a sporadic incidence is something that happens randomly. The whole point of the passage is to say, do they happen randomly or do they follow a cycle? So sporadically actually contradicts what he's saying. Yes, they follow a cycle, they follow a pattern, there is a pulse, and that pulse has been narrowed to 27.2 million years. That's what the author says. Got it? So the whole thing rests on sporadically. Your understanding of the meaning. Sporadic violence, uska matlab kya hai? During riots and all communal events, you read in the newspaper, sporadic violence. Kahin pe some incidents of violence, yahan wahan, once in a while you hear about it. That's sporadic. Almost like random, arbitrary. Okay? There's no pattern to it. Alright, so the shorter the passage, the shorter the argument, it's like Indian batsmen. You know, in India, we've seen that, I mean, of course, Shubman Gill has proved that wrong, Rahul Dravid has proved that wrong, but basically you had all the master batsmen who were pocket dynamites. You had Sunil Gavaskar. Pulse is constant, kisne kaha? Different theories have been given, no, Naman? Different theories have been given about the pulse. Initially, they came to 26.2 to 37. Now they say that 27.5 is probably the figure that everybody is zeroing in. That not necessarily that it is constant. Okay, there have been different theories about this pulse and the cycle, the period in which these events occur. So you can't say it's constant. Okay, the word constant is what makes it very particular. So you say that author hasn't mentioned it so definitely. Alright, so read, understand what these three lines are saying, and then we'll find out which option cannot be concluded. Okay. So from these three lines, the examiner has made three options which can be concluded. So you can, four options. That mein to 5 options hote hain. The overwhelming preponderance of people have not freely decided what to believe, rather have been socially conditioned or indoctrinated into their beliefs. They are unreflective thinkers. So, a majority of people have not freely decided what to believe. Okay, so what do they believe? They believe what they have been socially conditioned to believe. Okay, and this majority of people are unreflective thinkers. That means they do not reflect on what they have. They just think without, they do not think. Unreflective thinkers are people who do not think or do not reflect. So, which one cannot be concluded? Things that we do automatically need to be reflected upon. The inability to criticize one's belief leads to indoctrination A lot of people end up believing what they passionately oppose. Beliefs that appear normal and natural heighten their acceptance. A normal thinker finds it difficult to recognize what is happening to them. Now let's go back to the passage. Which one do we think is out of line? A majority of people, overwhelming preponderance means majority, okay? They have not freely decided what to believe, okay? They do not consciously believe in something. Rather, they have been socially conditioned into their beliefs. They are unreflective thinkers. They do not reflect, they do not think. All right, so from there, or their thinking does not follow reflection, they just do it, right? Unreflective thinking means thinking that doesn't involve reflection. Deep thought is reflection. From there, which one cannot be concluded? So based on this, you are extending your logic, and which four are most. Okay, if I extend my logic, I can include this, 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 this. Which one can you say, I cannot put this into the scheme of what the author has said? Is it option A, things that we do automatically need to be reflected upon? We are all unreflective thinkers. We have been socially conditioned, indoctrinated. Most of us, right? We do not freely choose think what we believe. Something like this. Things we automatically do need to be reflected upon. The inability to criticize one's belief leads to indoctrination. We do not believe. We haven't chosen what to believe. Somebody else has told us what to believe. So therefore, you cannot criticize. You do not know what to believe. You've been told what to believe. So B can be concluded. Okay, can be concluded. So it cannot be the answer. A lot of people end up believing what they passionately oppose. ये आपको कैसे पता चला? किसने कहा? Where is it written that the indoctrination is opposite of what you believe? Where is it written that indoctrination involves? Because you've been socially conditioned to believe something. So you have to extend your logic for every option here. Because these three lines don't tell us anything. Majority of us have not freely decided what to believe. If you have been socially conditioned, that means society has decided. So whatever society accepts, you are accepting. That is part of the social conditioning. Therefore, anything which appears normal to society, which is accepted, makes it, whatever appears normal, everybody is accepting it, so that makes it more acceptable. So this comes as a result of social conditioning, you can infer. We are looking at something that you definitely would say, this has not been, even by extending my logic, I cannot think this, and that is only C. Everything else, just extend your logic. You have to extend your logic for this conclusion question. We have only 3 lines to fall back on. Unreflective thinkers, you should reflect. You should not be unreflective thinkers, because he is saying you are not freely choosing to believe what you will. Inability, because you've been indoctrinated, you are not freely choosing what to believe. So you are just believing blindly, right? So you are not even criticizing your own beliefs, you are just accepting it, right? This is because of the social conditioning. Whatever is normal, whatever is acceptable by society, whatever appears normal is okay. Okay? What is happening to them? Because you are not chosen what to believe. So E is also possible. You are just indoctrinated into believing whatever you've been told. So you can't even recognize what is happening. You have been indoctrinated. You are not, your mind has unconsciously accepted the indoctrination. But how do you know what you passionately oppose? What you passionately oppose becomes your belief. So if you passionately oppose something, that means you have not been socially indoctrinated. So C is something that cannot be concluded. They are all past year questions. I have not chosen, well, I have chosen a couple of questions because I wanted to, so as I told you, inference and conclusion questions are the most common in XAT. The next, sometimes you can ask assumption based questions. What is an assumption? Something that you take for granted when you come to a conclusion. So here, if they ask what is the assumption, what is the person making the conclusion in the passage taking for granted? On what lines has he come to a particular conclusion? What does he believe so that he has come to this conclusion? And it is never stated. So how do you find out an assumption? Find out what are the premises, what is the conclusion, which option acts as a second premise and leads to the conclusion. That is the assumption. That hasn't been mentioned. Suppose I say Virat Kohli is the best batsman in the world. He is a member of the Indian cricket team. India will win the next World Cup. Okay. Now, what are my assumptions? Only according to these lines. You will immediately say you are assuming Virat Kohli will play the next World Cup. I didn't say that. Best batsman, member of the Indian team, India will win the next World Cup. So what am I assuming? The team which has the best batsman will win the World Cup. That is the assumption. Only then I come to this conclusion. Correct? Same way here, read what has been given to us, read the conclusion, and then we'll try to find what is the assumption. Human beings are using up the Earth's resources very fast, resulting in an alarming depletion of resources. We all know that. To check this, the developed nations must decrease their resource consumption or keep their resource consumption at the present levels for the next half a century at least. Alright, so in the passage, no, Ankit, assumption is, that is a conclusion, that is not even a conclusion, that's a conjecture, differs from person to person. In this passage, when he is asking you the assumption, he is asking you the assumption of the person whose argument this is, the speaker. So the assumption is the assumption of the argument. What is the basis of the conclusion in the argument? Not your assumption or my assumption. What is there for us to see in this? So here he is saying the Earth's resources are depleting very fast. Correct? Coal chala ja raha hai, pani chala ja raha hai, all these resources are going and they're getting less and less, right? Then he says, but iska ek solution hai. To check this, what do you have to do? The developed nations must decrease their consumption or at least keep it at the present level for at least the next half a century. This is his conclusion. We can get a hand, we can at least control this problem. How? If the developed countries stop their consumption, decrease their consumption, or at least keep it at the present level for the next 50 years. Ye uska solution hai. So when he comes up with this solution to this problem, what is the assumption? On what basis has he come up with this solution? What has he thought of when he has come to this solution? That is the assumption. The author of the argument is assuming which of the following. He is not asking what you and I are assuming, Ankit. Correct? So, author of the passage, the author of the argument, what is his assumption? Alright, developed nations waste resources, developing nations import most of their resources, developing nations are careful about using Earth's resources, curbing resource consumption of developing countries will help reduce the Earth's resource depletion. People will become more environmentally conscious in the next half a century. Earth's resources are depleting. Premise. Conclusion, which is in the form of a solution, is developed nations decrease their consumption or keep it at the present level for the next 50 years, then this can be checked. What is his assumption? That his solution will work, right? So Pranav, no question mark after D. It is D. He is assuming that the solution will work, which is why he is saying. So he is thinking that if we do this, you can check it. When I say to decrease the traffic problem in Bangalore, build more flyovers, what am I assuming? That building more flyovers will solve the problem. That is the key to any assumption question. It's actually very, very easy. Because it is so easy, most students do not look at that option. The terms of the assumption and the terms of the conclusion will be the same. Similar words will be used. Got it? What is this question? This question is another assumption question. Here he is asking what has not been assumed. This is another XAT question. Read the passage. I will not give you any hints for this. Okay? Dense, dirty air laced with grease best describes the atmosphere of most Lagos streets. Drive from one corner of this great West African city to another, and in no time you will find surfaces lightly dusted like a soft sprinkling of icing on cakes. Under the half moons of fingernails, thick grime settles. It's a scene taken as typically African. This is not just for Lagos, it's for every African place. This is a common scene in Africa. Polluted, bedraggled, unhealthy. This has only ever been made possible by the exploitation of Africa's people. This week, 5 African countries, Nigeria included, announced plans to end the practice of European oil companies and traders exporting African quality diesel. Dirty fuel has earned the name because it is imported diesel with sulfur levels. Is there any dirty that export quality, the fuel that is exported to Africa or African fuel is also called dirty fuel. Dirty fuel has earned the name because it is imported diesel with sulfur levels as high as 3000 parts per million, ppm, parts per million. European maximum is 10 parts per million. To be clear, African quality fuel is fuel not fit for European humans. These are the facts given to you. Question says which is not an underlying assumption. Jaldi se fir se facts dekh lo. Lagos is dirty and polluted. So are other African cities. Okay, and this is because this pollution, this dirty, polluted scene in Africa, this typical scene that you see in Africa is because of the exploitation of the people of Africa. This week, 5 African countries, including Nigeria, announced that they will stop the practice of European oil. Europe exports African quality diesel to Africa. It's called dirty fuel, and these 5 nations have decided to stop this European fuel from coming to their countries. And why is it called dirty fuel? It has a high level of sulfur, 3000 parts per million, when the European standard is 10 parts per million. Okay, African quality fuel is clearly not fuel for European humans. It's only for African humans. From this, what is not an assumption of the author is what you have to tell me. European oil companies dump their fuel on African countries. Economic exploitation until challenged runs smoothly. Racism makes it easy for Europeans to justify exploitation of inferior races. Please mark the question number when you answer this question. Typically, African cities today are not fit for human habitation. African nations had accepted dirty fuel as the norm, which cannot be assumed. Tripti says it's C. Vanshita says it's C. Shivam says it's E. Cannot be assumed. Shivam, if they allowed that oil, they used that fuel with such a high sulfur, why? For so many years. Only now, so much pollution is there. Only now 5 nations said stop. So until now, they had accepted dirty fuel as the norm, means aisa hi hoga fuel. Otherwise, if they had realized it was bad, they would have stopped it. They must have thought this is what we are getting. So they accepted it, only then it could happen. No, so this is an assumption. Why was this practice continuing for so long? How could Europe sell fuel to Africa, export fuel to Africa with such high sulfur? Why did Africa take it? So the assumption is the moment they're getting fuel, they are accepting it. That acceptance only has allowed the practice to continue. So this is the assumption, right? Nothing about racism has been there. It might be pure economic reasons. Nothing has been mentioned about racism making it easy to justify. Nowhere has it been given about Europeans justifying it. There is no justification there is no sentence which mentions how Europe has justified sending this to Africa, selling something with such high sulfur to Africa. Nothing has been mentioned, right? So the author has just said that Europeans have sent what is unfit for Europe, they have sent. So they clearly dumped their fuel. And the fact that it has continued for so many years, the assumption is that it continues until challenge. Only now they have challenged. Then he has met the sheer description shows that it is not very, very uninhabitable and this. But racism, because it's not been mentioned, Europeans justifying what they are doing has not been mentioned, makes D the correct answer. Makes C the correct answer. Got it? Next question. Weaken the argument. How do you weaken an argument? You look at the conclusion. Okay? Identify the conclusion. Find an option which says that the conclusion is not derived from the premises. There is another conclusion possible. This is not the only possible conclusion. Right? You have to attack the conclusion, not the facts which are given to you. That's your first rule. Alright? So let's read quickly. Weaken. When facing challenges, people in today's digital world rely heavily on private online information seeking behavior. We all do that. Go to the net. The net is our go-to thing. Whenever you face any challenge, you try to see if the internet has any solution. Google Guru, kuch hai to. Individuals, now this is the general practice. Then now he's come to the specific argument. Individuals who experience depression will often attempt to understand their predicament and seek remedy by searching the internet. Kuch hai kya? I am facing depression. Let me first go to the internet to see what does the internet say about it. A recent report says that there exists evidence of many searches comprising the word depression during and just after elections in country Y. Now they found this. There were elections in country Y and they found that word searches which had the word depression was pretty high during and just after elections in country Y. Okay, from here to here are the facts given to us. The conclusion says, so it can be concluded that the election is experienced by many people in country Y as a truly psychologically traumatizing event, such as being potentially depressionogenic. Okay, so basically we look to the internet, we search the internet for solutions to the challenges. People who experience depression also obviously seek internet solutions. These are the symptoms. What are the possible remedies, solutions? Now, this is general statement. After that, he said, it was found that in country Y, during and after elections, searches for this word depression searches were very high. Based on these facts, the author has concluded, therefore, elections in country Y was a traumatizing event for the people and probably caused depression. Which one weakens the conclusion, most seriously weakens the conclusion drawn in the passage? Last year's question. And I remember there were two options which were close. And when the answer came out and my answer was right, I was like, yes, see, this is right. Okay, let's see. Which one would weaken this conclusion most? Per day sale of antidepressant drugs is constant across the years in country Y. Election is a festival in some countries. People happily choose their leaders by casting votes. Depression-related advertisements are on the rise during and just after the election in country Y. A survey in country Y shows that an election can cause a significant increase in the average level of depression. Which one would weaken the conclusion that elections are traumatizing, caused depression? Therefore, based on the fact that search for the depression word search for depression was peaked during and after elections. Which one would weaken it? One which shows there was no relation between these searches and the election. ये कौन सा होगा? Okay, Lynette says option A, cause maybe we could assume that people get drugs as answer. No spike would indicate that it was not, right? That people go buy these drugs and then the sale was the same. So when there were elections, just because they searched for depression or there was more searches doesn't mean the sale was the same. So you can't say that it caused depression and people sought remedies for depression by looking for it. Therefore, yes, it is A. A weakens it most. Excellent. Many people chose this. Depression-related ads are on the rise. Okay? You are assuming people watched television during the elections, then they watched the elections, and then they searched the net, and search for depression went up, okay, or whatever. Okay, advertisements are for people suffering from depression. Okay, get this medicine maybe, but advertisement will not weaken the conclusion that the elections were caused depression, and therefore people went on depression searches. What will that the election did not cause it? People's sale of the depression drugs were the same. So you can't say it caused depression, more people were depressed, whatever. All right, complete the argument. Another very common form of question where you have to understand the flow of thought of the passages so that you can predict what is the next line. The theme and the tone of the passage is very important. All right, let's read. The last line of this passage, typically you're completing. So you are actually completing the argument. A leads to B, B leads to C. Therefore, I can say eventually C is the result of A kind of thought process. In the future, hydrogen may form a significant part of our energy systems. Today, it is mostly used in oil refineries and fertilizer, but in the future, hydrogen could power our cars, heat our homes, and fuel industry. A recent McKinsey study suggested that in less than 25 years, hydrogen could account for 18% of the global energy consumption and reduce carbon dioxide emissions from the current levels by some 6 gigatons. Theme: hydrogen. It will be a predominant part of our energy systems. Today it's mostly used in oil refineries and fertilizers, but in the future it will be more prevalent. It will be in our cars, in our homes, and in the industry. And a McKinsey study says in less than 25 years, it will account for 18% of the global energy consumption and reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 6 gigatons. Got it? Now, which of the following sentences will complete the above excerpt? Germany unsuccessfully experimented with trains fueled by hydrogen. Earlier, experts thought that hydrogen fuel would be too expensive. Hydrogen can be made through reformation, electrolysis, pyrolysis. comes labeled in different colors. Despite the potential, 90% of the general population knew nothing about hydrogen technology. The impact of such a change in the energy system would be huge, potentially generating 2,500 billion in revenue globally and creating more than 30 million jobs. Which do you think? Okay. Which one completes? Hydrogen, part of energy, there later its use will be more prevalent. There will be a carbon dioxide reduction by this much. This figure, right? E. Excellent. All right. Okay, next one. Let's read the question. Best summarizes the author's disappointment. So sum up the author's point, especially his disappointment. Twitter is not on the masthead of a newspaper, but Twitter has become its ultimate editor. Okay? So Twitter is dominant in the press. As the ethics and mores of that platform have become those of the paper itself has increasingly become a kind of performance space. Twitter is dominating newspapers. The ethics and mores of Twitter, the platform, governs newspapers now. It dominates print journalism or newspapers. Stories are chosen and told in a way to satisfy the narrowest of audiences. Newspapers' narratives are broad and general. Instead, they've become Twitter-like. The mores, the norms followed by Twitter are followed by newspapers. Stories are told in a way not to only satisfy the narrowest of audiences rather than a curious public in general, and to allow the public to draw their own conclusions. So you tell a story to a narrow audience in a particular way rather than allow people to read to satisfy their curiosity and draw their own conclusions. So basic thing is newspapers are dominated by Twitter in every way, right? So which one sums up the writer's disappointment best? Newspapers are ready to compromise with their ethics. Newspapers fear to speak outside the narrow confines of social media. Newspapers get influenced by followers on the social media platform. Newspapers create their own narratives to control the audience, or newspapers cave in to the narratives. Cave in is one word. Cave in means to yield to the narratives shared on social media platforms. Which do you think is the correct answer? You know, the newspaper, you have the headline, the name of the newspaper, then you have a logo kind of a thing. That's called the masthead of the newspaper. Twitter is not its masthead, but Twitter has become the editor of the newspaper. It's dominating newspapers, especially in the way a story is being told. So newspapers are being totally influenced, dominated, and caving in, yielding, compromising in terms of narratives. Remember, he is not talking about ethics. He is not talking about fear. He is not talking about getting influenced, totally dominated, not followers, by the platform itself. Right? Therefore, it is E. All right. What is the answer here? What is the intent of the paragraph? Intent means what is the author implying? What's he trying to say? Okay. Get the tone and the theme right. If we can send a human to the moon, why can't we build sustainable cities, defeat cancer, tackle climate change? So go the rallying cries inspired by one of humanity's greatest achievements, the US effort that put Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon on 20th July 1969. This is not what the author is saying. So go the rallying cries inspired by. Caving, there are two words. Cave in. If you cave in to pressure, that means you give in to pressure, like the Indian cricket team did during the World Cup final. Narrative, the way of telling a story. Twitter tells a story to a narrow audience, right? Same way, newspapers are caving in, are giving in, are yielding to the narratives of Twitter, to the way Twitter is telling stories. Newspapers are copying what Twitter is doing. Okay? Caving in means to yield, to give in. Alright, so what do you think is the intent? What is the author implying? If we can send a human to the moon, why can't we build sustainable cities, defeat cancer? This is what people are saying when they saw people go, when we could send people to the moon. Inspired by US putting man on moon, this is what people are saying. If you can send man to the moon, why can't you build sustainable cities? So goes the rallying cry. What is the author actually trying to say? America's moonshot was more about race to the moon and less about solving problems. America's moonshot initiative was mainly a response to USSR's competing initiative. The complexity of developing sustainable cities and curing cancer is far more than sending a human to the moon. The reason we celebrate 1969 moonshot is precisely because nothing significant has been done in that domain since then. Moonshot has a definitive ownership, whereas creating sustainable cities and curing cancer are public good problems. What do you think is the author's intention in saying? People are saying if we can send a man to the moon, why can't we build a sustainable city? Why can't we cure cancer? This is what people are saying, inspired by America sending man to the moon. What is the author implying by this? He's asking. Did he say it was about a race to the moon? If you can send man to the moon, why can't you send a... No. People are saying if you can send a man to the moon, when they looked at, inspired by the picture of man on moon, people are asking if you can send a man to the moon, why can't you build sustainable cities and cure cancer? Is he saying it is not about, America's moonshot is not about solving problems? People are asking, author is saying, because you can ask that question, but this is way more difficult. That's what he is implying. It's not about solving problems. Going to the moon is, it's about the race to the moon has not been implied. Key is, if you can do that, you can do this too, is what the people are saying. Author obviously believes that the analogy is not correct. If you can do that, why can't you do this? That is different, this is different. This is much more complicated. That is what he is trying to convey. Therefore, the correct answer is C. Alright. No time for this. Okay, I've overshot my time limit. But those of you who deciding to join, I hope you join us soon. Take a free trial and join us. Alright. Join, be one of our toppers. Now, those of you who've taken 23, our college predictor based on your profile is there. Check that. It will give a pretty accurate prediction of what are the institutes you can get into with your profile and your expected CAT percentile based on your attempts and your the accuracy that you think you have. We have a score calculator and percentile predictor which was bang on last time. So find out that. Okay, log in your attempts so that we'll give you a percentile predictor. 9th December, how, when, why of MBA by Saral. All India Open Mock. Now CAT is out. We'll look at CAT, but do think of XAT and SNAP. All India Open Mock is going live on 30th November. Will be open till 3rd December. Register for that and do take that if you're interested in SNAP. If you're interested in joining our courses, there is a scholarship test. The next one is up on 3rd December. Take it at 11 a.m. so that you get a waiver on your CAT fees. Alright, so join us for SNAP First Impressions on 10th, 17th and 22nd December. Alright, I will see you again. Join our social media platforms. We will be on YouTube, on the app, and of course join us in our paid classes where we'll help you with your attempts with the other exams that are coming up. See you. Bye-bye.